So good afternoon, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Yeah,
Great.
fine.
Excellent, perfect. So today's presentation will be about heritage language and education. Can heritage languages be taught outside of the typical classroom setting? Okay. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Benjamin Lafontaine. I'm a former student here at Concordia. I graduated from applied linguistics, specifically from the master degrees program in applied linguistics in October 2024. So I have done a research paper specifically about language ideology, language hierarchies, as well as language attitudes. And I specifically studied the case of Chinese Singaporeans in Singapore. Okay, so if you are not familiar with Singapore, Singapore is a tiny nation island located south of Malaysia. Not so far away from Indonesia either. There are 4 official languages in this country: English, Mandarin, Malay, also known as Bahasa Melayu, and Tamil. The Singaporean population consists of 3 large ethnicities: Chinese, the Malays, and Indians. For the most part, there are South Indians. And each ethnicity is represented by one official language. So for example, the Chinese people are represented with Mandarin, Malays are represented by Malay, of course, and last but not least, the Indians are represented with Tamil language. However, many other languages are spoken in Singapore, such as other Chinese languages, including Cantonese, Hokkien, Teochew, Hakka, Hainanese, Fujianese as well, and many other languages that you might not have heard of. Also, some other Austronesian languages are spoken, such as Balinese, Javanese, as well as other Indian languages such as Hindi, Bengali, Urdu, Malayalam, and Telugu, and so many more. So my research paper took the form of an extended literature review, and I based my research on 26 peer-reviewed articles, and that includes case studies, critical analysis, surveys, as well as semi-structured studies. And my 2 research questions are, what is the Speak Mandarin campaign? I'll talk about this in just a second. And my second research question is, how did this policy affect Chinese Singaporeans to speak their Chinese dialects as their heritage languages? Okay, so first of all, let's define what the Speak Mandarin campaign is about. So that was a policy that was launched in 1979 in Singapore, and the goal was to unify all Chinese Singaporeans of all dialect backgrounds in order to form a more homogenized society, okay, under a single language and culture, and this language is Mandarin. And at the same time, while Mandarin was increasingly regarded as the high prestige language for business and for trading, the other Chinese languages started to be looked down upon, and they started to lose in popularity. And they were perceived as low prestige, and they were facing more and more decline. So the cause for this Speak Mandarin campaign is because if we go back in the late 19th century and beginning of the 20th century, the Singaporean society was very divided. Even within the Chinese Singaporeans amongst themselves, this community was quite divided because none of these Chinese languages they were not similar enough to have a proper communication and to have an effective communication. So even among Chinese Singaporeans, it was very, very difficult to effectively communicate, which did create a lot of division among linguistic groups, even within Chinese people themselves. And as a consequence, there was an increasing need for an effective communication between all people of every background, and also for a more homogenized society. So the launching of the Speak Mandarin campaign had a lot of consequences, both positive and negative. So we'll start with the positives. So yes, it did create a beautiful and a stronger, more prosperous, homogenized society under the Mandarin language and also a common Chinese culture. Mandarin became the prestige language that was used for trading and economics, used sometimes in politics, and while on the other hand, the other Chinese languages were facing decline as they were perceived as low prestige, and if we're speaking these dialects, if I can put it this way, this is how they were referred to, then it would be very, it would be like you would be considered as low educated. So at that time, this is how they started to feel about. Yes, so as a consequence, especially among the younger generations who started to forget about how to speak their heritage languages, Chinese languages, right? So they suffered of identity loss, cultural loss, and also obviously language loss. So if these heritage languages are being lost, then of course, most likely the culture will be lost as well. So here are all the languages that I speak. No, it's a joke. It's just really the beautiful linguistic diversity, the beautiful linguistic mosaic of Singapore. So first, now let's define what is a heritage language. So basically a heritage language is any language outside of the official languages and its aboriginal languages of the country. So if we take, for example, the case of Canada, which has English and French as the official languages, and we have aboriginal languages such as Cree, Mi'kmaq, Algonquin, Kanyan, Kehai, and so on, so many more. So outside of that, all the languages that are spoken in our society count as heritage languages. For example, we have Greek, Italian, Spanish, Vietnamese, Arabic, and so on. These are examples of heritage languages. And sometimes we can also use the term immigrant language, ethnic language, ancestral language, or minority language, okay? So all these can be used to refer to the heritage language. So we have here examples of heritage language schools here in Montreal. So we have the Socrates and Demosthenes, which is a Greek elementary school in Montreal. We have also Surp-Hagop, which is an Armenian elementary school in Laval, next, right behind the Highway 15. And we have another example here is Missão Santa Cruz, which is a Portuguese weekend elementary school on Rachel, within the Portuguese area, like the Bits de Portugal, if you are familiar with that area. Okay, fine.
No, you can go.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So now let's move on to the advantages of having heritage languages and also multilingualism. So multilingualism is very beneficial because it is beneficial for the development of cognitive skills as well as language skills. So speaking many languages opens the doors to learn more subsequent languages in the future. Okay, by mastering 1 or 2 or 3 languages, then it gives you the ability to learn more. It also gives you the ability to express yourself by using very specific words and expressions in a specific language, because sometimes these words aren't translatable in other languages. Okay, so in certain languages, expressions, vocabulary words, cultural terms, etc., are very specific to one language, and which can be very difficult or sometimes impossible to translate into another language. Okay, it also increases the flexibility to formulate thoughts in different ways, because every language is unique. They have their own systems of grammar, punctuation, morphology, phonology, etc. And by being able to master multiple systems, it helps you to develop your cognitive abilities. And also, by speaking more than one language is beneficial in order to make connections, bridging connections between various languages, noticing similarities and differences between all these languages. Okay, so we have here an example of from Newman, 1982, which he gave a very relevant example. He compared Hokkien, which is a Chinese language, versus Mandarin, which is the official language in China and also in Taiwan and Singapore. Okay, one of the 4 official languages. Okay, so he stated that by speaking good Hokkien, which by the way has 8 tones versus Mandarin has only 5, so by speaking Hokkien as a first language will help you to speak more accurately Mandarin, because Hokkien is much more complex in phonology and grammar and also in vocabulary than Mandarin is. Okay, Mandarin is much simpler. So he described the advantages of speaking Chinese, non-Mandarin Chinese languages such as Teochew, Hokkien, Cantonese, will help you to study better and to perform better in Mandarin, which is less complex in grammar and phonology. Okay, and this doesn't just apply to Chinese languages, but also to Italian and German dialects as well. So how to maximize heritage language input and output. So heritage language programs are beneficial, they're great, and yes, we need to encourage them. However, they alone are not enough. Why? Because what's even more important is the use of these heritage languages within the household, within the family. This is what matters the most, because the speaking, the practice of this heritage language has to be done outside of classroom settings. So in the same way, when I learned English as a second language, most of my learning and most of my improvement happened by making friends, creating connections with different people who spoke English, and I got to practice my English as a second language with them. And the same for gym classes. So in elementary and high schools, do not wait just for the gym classes in order to exercise yourself. No, you have to take some initiative and to adopt positive attitudes and to get yourself involved into exercising and into practice. Okay, so in order to become healthy. Okay, And there is a very interesting conclusion from Nah and other researchers that heritage languages must be learned at home, okay, rather than at school, and especially at a young age. Okay, so yes, heritage languages are, so yeah, my take-home messages for you. So yes, heritage languages are better learned outside classroom, and that was my conclusion. Okay, so we have to encourage children, grandchildren to use and to practice their heritage language as much as possible. Okay, we have to be creative and to organize some activities that will motivate them to learn their heritage language and culture in more depth. Okay, so that includes participating into cultural events because they will have a chance to practice outside of their heritage language school, and also to gain a deeper understanding of of their very own heritage language and culture, which are very important to keep. Okay, so when I talk to you about some engaging and fun activities, it could be cooking in the heritage language, so cooking a traditional dish from this heritage culture in the heritage language. Okay, so for example, for Christmas, baking traditional kurabieves and mero makarona in Greek rather than reading it in English or in French or any other language. So in Greek, for example, that's my suggestion. Also watching movies, okay, that's also a great idea to learn how the language is spoken in real life. So that gives you that will give you a solid base as well. Writing poetry, yes, creativity, hello, creativity, how cool is that? And also singing songs, yes, songs are a great way to express emotions and talking about singing songs. So this could be a great idea for singing in your heritage in your heritage language would be great for your next karaoke night. Okay, so and my take-home message, okay, my final take-home message is that family communication is everything. So now, this is your turn to speak. So, well, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And now this is time for you guys to speak. So I have some discussion questions. So if you guys are heritage language speakers, so have you attended a heritage language school, or do you know somebody who's a heritage language speaker? Did he or she attended weekend classes or full-time heritage language schools? So please be specific. And if you master this heritage language or not, so what are some ideas that you can share with us in order to make this learning of the heritage language more fun and more effective? So any thoughts? Yes, I'll just, yes. Yeah, okay, yes.
Did you want to go?
Yes.
Is it okay to share personal stories?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's very interesting. I would have in another life probably studied something that you did because I love languages. And probably the reason for that is because I had two heritage languages growing up in Germany. I have a British mother and a Russian father. And I always went to British English school, but I had Russian on Saturday mornings. And I just wanted to, well, I have two things that I'd like to, I mean, you want us to share stories, but I'd also like to know from you. Have there been any studies about how long, how many generations these heritage languages typically continue to exist? In my case, I'm the descendant of Russians who left Russia over 100 years ago, and it's fairly odd that I should still speak Russian. And the other thing that would interest me is, do you have any idea or an overview of what, say, the formal attitude or sort of stance on this is on heritage languages from the Quebec provincial government and also from the federal government? Is there sort of a policy about this or not?
Well, here in Quebec, so I'm not an expert in the topic. However, what I can give you as all the information that I know is that in Quebec, there is a very strict French language policy with the Bill 101, La Loi 101, which makes mandatory for all immigrants, for all the newcomers, to attend French school only. Okay, and if you are, however, if you have at least one parent who have attended the English school, then you may register for English school as well. So regarding the heritage languages, as I have previously shared, there are some heritage language schools, like the Armenian one in Laval. There's the Greek. There's the Greek Socrates and Demosthenes, and there's also one on the South Shore as well. So they do exist. However, they aren't that common. So did I answer the question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about whether there was a sort of official acknowledgement of the wealth that these heritage languages bring, including, of course, indigenous languages, or whether it's sort of understood that things generally tend to die out after a generation or two.
Okay.
But don't worry if you can't answer. It's just thoughts that I've had.
Okay. But yeah, thank you very much, by the way, for sharing your personal story. But yes, I do not know how the politics works regarding this, so I'm very sorry for not being able to. I wish I could answer this question, but this is because to be very honest, I'm really not good at politics.
Okay, neither am I.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, this is a really cool presentation. I'm interested just because I'm Nigerian and I come from a background that specifically, I guess I am a heritage language learner, but in many ways I'm more of a receptive bilingual. And I wanted to know if you kind of encountered conversations around people like me who my parents struggled to teach us, like they could have taught us Igbo, which is the language they speak at home, but they struggled to do so when we first came here out of fear that I wouldn't properly assimilate or I wouldn't properly be able to speak. And then we never really spoke Igbo at home, or if we were spoken, it was done in forms of punishment, or if we were in trouble or something like that. So is there conversations about this is a two-part question. The first one being, has there been talks about people who may be receptively bilingual, who have heritage language in their lineage of some sort, but can fully only understand and not really interpret and produce to the level that it could be passed down in the future, just because though it's a language I fully understand, I fully interact with, I unfortunately have to grow up knowing I can never properly share it with my children if I don't live there, if I don't learn it, and even if I did, it wouldn't be the same as how my parents learned it. And then also, has there been conversations around the difficulty of working with languages where it's not actually promoted in the country to learn it, such as, or I think there's a prejudice sometimes for certain languages to be shared in some ways in certain countries compared to others. Just like you may find a Greek school, but I'd be shocked if you found a Yoruba school here teaching in that way, or